Howdy. Welcome to First Impressions, where we take a look at an album we've never heard before and give our immediate reactions. Today, we're taking a look at Transgender Dysphoria Blues by Against Me, released in 2014. Shout out to Jade for the recommendation. She showed me this album earlier on this year, and while I didn't listen to the entire thing, the songs that I did end up listening to, I liked a lot. So when it comes to Against Me, our lead singer and guitarist of this band is a woman that goes by the name of Laura Jane Grace. About a year or so before this album was released, Laura had just came out as transgender, so as you can imagine, a lot of these songs are very personal and they go into detail about the struggles she had to endure during her transition. Let's go ahead and see what Laura had to say about this important moment in her life and get into it. This is Transgender Dysphoria Blues. Kicking things off with our opener and title track, Transgender Dysphoria Blues. We get a rapid snare roll to start off the song. It almost reminds me of Ballroom Blitz, if you ever heard that song before. And then you have the guitars and the bass coming in after a short while. I gotta say, really like the tone that Against Me is rocking with here. Especially that bass tone, man. You got a lot of that bass tone rocking throughout the album, and I honestly just can't get enough. One of my favorite parts about this song is the little drum fill that we're about to hear right before we go into the last chorus. Fuck yeah. This song is very upbeat. It's very easy to have fun with this song, but once you start diving into the lyrics, you start to see the adversity that Laura had to deal with. Some key lyrics have to deal with the dysphoria that she was going through, saying that your shoulders are too broad for a girl, or in instances where she wants them to notice the ragged ends on her dress, but they are noticing something else entirely. And I'm sure we've all been in a position to where we want to be perceived in a certain way, but for one reason or another, society just ain't having it. So this is definitely Laura's output to channel all that negative energy, and what you have is a great song. Definitely my favorite from the album. Next up, we have True Trans Soul Rebel. When it comes to True Trans Soul Rebel, this is definitely not one of my favorites, but I definitely like the beach punk rock vibe that it's given off. And once you start getting into the song and you got all these elements being combined together, what you end up with is just a very classic rock and roll sound. And speaking of that classic rock and roll sound, up next is Unconditional Love. Quite the somber premise with this song. It has to deal with unconditional love not being enough to save Laura. So whenever you think about something as pure as love in its most perfect condition, that's still not being enough to save somebody, that's really tough to hear. That's the thing about this band. The lyrics are very dark, troubling. You can definitely see the struggles that Laura was going through, but the instruments are so lively and they let you have a good time while still understanding the story that Laura is telling. So Unconditional Love, if you're looking for that true classic rock and roll sound, you got it right here. After that, we have Dancing with the Jocks. Holy shit, a huge punk element to this song, especially whenever we get to the all my lives. I just want to bang my face against a fucking table, man. It's that fucking snare that just gets me. I love it whenever somebody just beats the ever-loving shit out of their drums. That sounds a little crazy saying that out loud, but I digress. This song is loud, it's in your face, and it's just under 2 minutes, but don't let that fool you. It still might wear you out in the end. After that, we have Osama bin Laden as the Crucified Christ. So with a song title like that, my curiosity was piqued. I headed straight to the lyrics. And while it took me some time to understand what Laura was trying to say, and I'm doing my best to interpret here, basically it has to deal with this three-way connection, a three-way connection I never would have fucking thought of in my life, but it has to deal with Osama bin Laden, Mussolini, and Jesus. Basically, the comparison is that all these people were vilified for their beliefs and that they were killed because of it too. Even whenever it comes to Jesus, we all love Jesus right now, cool dude, but there was a point in time where he was the most hated man in the world because people did not believe what he was telling them. And Laura is using that hate to describe the hate towards transgendered people, not necessarily comparing them to Mussolini and Osama bin Laden, people like that, because who the fuck wants to be compared to them? But more so the hate that they're getting and the way that they are being treated. They're being treated as the worst of the worst type of people, and that's just not right. Sound-wise, it's another rockin' song. The main guitar riff that we hear throughout the song reminds me of two songs, actually. When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin and Fixer by Metallica. Up next, we have Fuck My Life 666. The two lyrics that I get from this song, the very finite lyrics whenever you start thinking about it, is all things meant to be destroyed, all moments meant to pass. Everything is going to come to an end eventually. Anything that you think might live on forever, ain't gonna happen. Even as something as vast as space, whenever, all these black holes end up eating every single galaxy and every single planet, eventually they're gonna be eating each other and they're gonna eat themselves too. All to the point to where space is just this big old ball of nothing, and eventually time will become meaningless, more meaningless than it already is. That's definitely something to take from this song, as, kind of dark of a thought that is. It's just nature, baby. It's just what's going to happen. And the final note actually ties into that, because this song, it sounds very happy and upbeat, as Against Me usually does. And they have a chance to hit a resounding note at the end, but they choose to hit a different note instead to make it sound, much more dreadful and just like kind of hopeless in a way. Like, whenever the chorus repeats on the song, the guitar doesn't go back to that note. It goes back, to the starting note of the verse, what have you. But I like that detail right there. It's basically Against Me just saying, we're going to end this shit however the fuck we want to end it. Moving on, we have Dead Friend. I don't mind Dead Friend. We definitely have a sound that we've been getting used to up to this point in the album, but something that I love about this song are the harmonies that happen. I think it's during the chorus. As you can imagine, this song definitely deals with the loss of a dear friend, and I believe that also ties in with the next song, which is Two Coffins. Two Coffins is actually the lone acoustic ballad whenever it comes to this song. The album really comes to a halt whenever we reach this track, and for good reason. It doesn't really get much more of a full stop than talking about death. On the opening lyrics, Laura is talking about how they have these two caskets, one for you, one for me, but she ends up saying, we have these caskets to sleep in. So that just gives me the imagery of just these two people just sleeping in a casket forever and just slowly rotting away. And as dark of a thought as that may be, at least you're not alone. After that, we have Paralytic States. Bass has a huge presence on this song, especially during the opening, and whenever things kick in, you really hear that thing thangin'. Fucking hit that shit. I'm sure my speakers don't give that too much justice, so please get some headphones and pay attention to that bass. You're not going to want to miss it. I believe this song has to do with Laura struggling to get her mother to accept the fact that she's transgender. When it comes to family, everybody's different, and sometimes you have that support, sometimes you don't. And whenever you don't have the support of these people that you thought you loved and you thought they had your back, I can imagine that it would put you in a paralytic state. One thing that can get you out of that state, though, is listening to the ending of this song. I absolutely love the vocal melody that Laura is singing. Man, I think that's just so beautiful. Paralytic States. One you're definitely not going to want to skip. Finally, we get to our closer, Black Me Out. Black Me Out, not a bad song, but definitely not one of my go-tos either. I can appreciate the passion being on display here, but I don't think it's enough to justify this as the closer. Me personally, I'm switching the opener and the closer. I felt like that would have been a much more emphatic way to end things. But what the fuck do I know? I'm not in the fucking band. Who cares? Still, personal feelings aside, it's still a pretty decent tune and not a bad way to end things off. And that was Transgender Dysphoria Blues, a 10-song long album with a 28-minute runtime. In conclusion, this is a rockin' album. Very well produced album too. The instruments are loud and clear. You can hear every single note that's being played with this band. The drums are non-stop. When it comes to this record, Laura is non-stop. She doesn't really give herself much of a break whenever it comes to these songs. But that ends up helping this album in the long run because of how raw these vocals are. You feel every single word that this woman is telling you, and you can really relate to the struggles that she is talking about within these songs. You don't have to be trans, cis, gay, straight, just everybody has their own struggles in life, and we all need to deal with it so long as it's in a healthy way that doesn't hurt anybody. But this record will not hurt you in the slightest. If any pain is to be had, it's going to be the pain in your neck from headbanging too long. So let me know what you think about the album if you have heard it, and give me any and all recommendations on what we should listen to next. And before we go, just a quick word to any of my LGBTQ friends that might be watching this. It's an understatement when I say this, but we have had a very, very long week. And right off the start, things are not looking good. There is a lot of hate that is being put on display currently. And my biggest worry is to make sure that none of that hate gets to y'all. If you can just do 2 things upon leaving this video. First and most importantly, please, please, please don't hurt yourself. If you hurt yourself in any kind of way or you take yourself out of the game entirely, all those evil motherfuckers basically would have won twice. So what's good in that? And 2, please don't stop creating. Whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's life itself, please, please, please do not stop being creative. Because that old adage sticks in my mind. History is won by the winners. And that book can be changed and edited down however they see fit. They can rip as many pages as they want out of that book. But what they can't do, or what they will have a very fucking hard time doing, is erasing music. Those are the real archives for me. That's the stuff that you don't hear about in the history books. That's the stuff that you have to really get down on your hands and knees and kind of look through the cracks of society to see how we were really going along. And so long as we don't have any of that negative bullshit affecting us and we remain persistent, we're gonna get out of this together, one way or another. So y'all stay safe out there. Please don't hurt yourself and don't stop creating. We'll see you next time. Stay tuned.